welcome to Pointy End. I'm Keith Sutherland. Today my guest is well-known Bendigo businesswoman Margot Spalding. Margot, welcome.
Hi Keith.
It's great to have you along board, and of course there's been a lot happen over the last couple of weeks with the opening of the Ulumbarra Theatre, and it's been an amazing adjunct to Bendigo, our already fantastic arts precinct, View Street area. But there's been a bit of criticism of late and letters to the editor, etc. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, I think the Ulumbarra is a most remarkable development and thoroughly positive. It's an absolutely massive project. And so there's been a bit of a hoo-ha about the certificate of occupancy only being served 4 hours before. Well, I think, well, it got that, so that's fine. And I think anybody who's worked on massive projects, which I have and we have, realises that all these things run to a timeline, and you know, somebody was critical that there was a screw in the carpet. Well, big deal. I was overwhelmed by the beauty and most extraordinary feel of the whole project from the very first time I went in, which was maybe 12 months or so ago, and every time I went in there I was blown away by it. I don't see how people can be critical of something so remarkably good. The
point that they were making, as I understand it, was the OH&S, maybe we should have put it off because it wasn't quite ready. It is probably about 6 to 8 weeks of finish, but at the end of the day, once you've locked it in, the opening's happening, all these other events happening, how do we put it off? So I think that's where probably their major criticisms come from.
Well, you have to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, we're going to open, we're going to launch on this date. The city was promised that they'd have the building completed in December. I think December 31st was the actual date. So, I mean, it was three and a half months down the track. So you have to be well into organising your launch events long before you have your launch event. So it's got to be some months ahead. They had a massive program organised. You can't put those things off. You just can't pull the pin on performances. The Wiggles had to be moved, but the other performances, you can't be moving James Morrison, and you can't be changing Ross Noble, and you can't be changing all the schools and that massive community event. So I think it's fine. It wasn't perfect, but that's okay. It was still brilliant.
Coming back to you, I've got to compliment you because Jimmy Possum's had a fair bit to do with it, the Daycore and some of the other things inside. And it was an amazing opening on that Friday night, last Friday week, to walk in past the eerie feeling of the cells there. As I said to Stan last week, it just seemed like that somebody was creeping along with you. And it was an amazing, whose idea, and I believe it was Stan's idea, to have that entrance coming past the cells and then coming to that open space. And then you go into the theatre itself, and I really haven't had an opportunity to see the whole complex, and it's an enormous thing for Bendigo. It's a $26 million project, but what it's going to bring to town is just enormous, I would believe.
I wonder how it was actually done for $26 million. I think $26 million these days has gone a very long way in regard to that project. I also think what's remarkable is, you know, there was a big ghost of the prison sitting up there at the top of Bendigo, but to have turned it into this wonderful place that so many people are going to be able to celebrate and participate in is remarkable. I mean, in the first 9 days, I think there's 22,000 people will have gone through the theatre, and the opening night was electric. The performance with the Indigenous people was absolutely remarkable, and I learned so much about the history of Aboriginal people in this region, and I think that was a wonderful, it had a wonderful sense of inclusion. Then to go to see the 6,000 or so people on the Sunday, because I was back and forth all the time checking it out and straightening furniture and doing that sort of thing, but you know, to see all of those people and to see the, I think it's called Creatability, disabled group doing a performance, and little groups of children, and then the little girls come out with all the curly hair and all the flouncy frocks. I mean, it's remarkable for Bendigo and the opportunity, and all of those people who performed at these opening events, they will remember that forever. The little girls in their extraordinary green outfits and little boys doing tumble things. I just think it adds so much, and I think they got the certificate of occupancy. The OH&S, they were very particular about that all the way through. They had an OH&S man who, every time I went there, I had to report to him, get the full kit. So it was front of mind, OH&S. It mightn't have been quite perfect for the opening. I think it was fine. I think it was great.
A lot of people say Bendigo can't work collaboratively on issues and events. I think Dale Pearce and Stanley Akos did an amazing job to bring it all together. From the last 5 years to see it on paper, joint money, federal, state money, and the school and also the council city futures which leads me into the next part, because there's also been an organisation, I'm not quite sure who they are, but Bendigo Exposed have been coming out with fairly harsh criticism of City Futures Department, which Stanley Acos heads up for the council, of course. But they're saying, okay, there's $6 million worth of wages for 59 staff members. They're running at a huge loss. Is it something that we should be concerned about, or is this is just typical Bendigo trying to draw the tall poppy down?
Well, I don't think it's typical Bendigo. It's typical some people in Bendigo. I don't follow this as Bendigo Exposed, but I think, well, you know, any organisation has a wages bill. So their wages bill would be based upon an award or a schedule. I don't think that the City Futures would be paid any more than people, any other department in the city or in any other local government or in doing similar roles anywhere else. The thing that has to be looked at and evaluated constantly is it return on investment and what percentage is the wages bill of the revenue of that organisation. Now, the $6 million, I don't know, you know, does that include super? Does it include packages? I mean, what does the $6 million include? I don't know. So I can't actually comment on $6 million for 59 people. It depends very much what is included in that. I think return on investment for the City Futures is remarkable for Bendigo, extraordinary for Bendigo. And it generates an enormous amount of revenue for Bendigo and surrounding areas. We see it in our business, and I know lots of other people do. The volume of people who come here because of the work of the City Futures Directorate is extraordinary. The marketing that they undertake, it's not only very high quality, it seems to be everywhere. They actually, all over Australia. They have very skilled people doing that. And so I think the return on investment for the marketing spend and what happens in City Futures is absolutely incredible.
Where I'm coming from with this is it seems this is a criticism. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate, I'm just bringing up what there's been comments are coming forward, is that a disproportionate amount of money of the budget, $190 million budget in Bendigo, goes to City Futures. You're right, it brings in an enormous amount of people to Bendigo. The marketability of Bendigo is quite incredible. You're right, all over Australia, it's not just billboards Melbourne, it's newspaper articles we're getting for nothing. The Age is always commenting, ABC
everywhere.
Sunday morning at 10:30 was just amazing to see the theatre project, etc. But I think where they're coming from is that are we dropping services in the process, like there's been, as you've been to council meetings of late, talking about HACC's home and community care services, $1.32 million. If we can spend the money on the arts, why can't we spend the money on disability and aged care? So that's where I think a lot of the criticism is coming from. And obviously they're doing this because it's going to come up at next council meeting. Do they support HACC's or do they let it go? Because 2018, the whole system changes. But my question to you is, do you believe it's a disproportionate amount that does go to the arts and City Futures?
No, I don't think it's disproportionate, but I think HACC's should also be supported.
I'm glad to say that.
You know, it's... you know, you can't let these people down. I actually didn't know much about HACC's before this all had such publicity, so therefore I think the publicity is good. But since then I've spoken to a lot of people who were utilising the services of HACC's and they speak so highly of it. So that's a wonderful thing that the council was running a fantastic service that was so well received and so vital. I think, you know, like, what is it, 1.3 million or something?
1.32 million. It's not a lot of money in the scheme of 190 million.
Yeah, you've got to juggle money all the time in any organisation. I mean, I believe the council, especially now with the private care service that's fallen over recently in Bendigo, you know, and those who are recipients of the service of HACC's are really, really seriously concerned that they cannot get that service anywhere else. So I really would hope that the council would be listening to think somehow we've got to jiggle a little bit, and I'm not necessarily saying that it comes out of City Futures. I don't say that at all. But from somewhere, I would hope that 1.2 or 3 million could be found to still support that service and offer that what's obviously an excellent service. It's not as if it was a shoddy service and everyone's glad to see it go. It was an excellent service, apparently, what I've been told by those who use it. And I think, yes, it should be offered. And also, we've got to look at, there's a lot of jobs would go by the board. Not only are the people who utilise the service not going to have that service, but there's a lot of jobs to consider in that. And I'm sure the council are considering that. So I'm hopeful that they would be able to find the money to support this service.
Be an interesting meeting next Wednesday, the 6th. Because you're right, 165 jobs are on the line with this position.
You know, that's a lot of jobs, and a lot of these people are very committed people who do it and would be very good at their job. But, you know, for the people who utilise the service, many are our most vulnerable and most in need of service. And it's not just them, but their families. I think, you know, I would be hopeful that I would be a quiet observer at that council meeting, but I would be hopeful that from somewhere they would find the money to continue that service. I think it's just too important.
Totally agree. Now, finally, Margot, you've been very successful in business in Bendigo. Jimmy Possum, synonymous with Bendigo. It's not just Bendigo, it's Australia-wide, of course, and I know you've been to Singapore just recently. But looking at it, you're very passionate about Bendigo, all things Bendigo. You're always promoting Bendigo. What's something that you, not as an outsider, an insider, looking at Bendigo, would you consider would also enhance our livability? We've got lots and lots of things. We've got arts, we've got sporting. Hopefully we've got HACC and other services we provide. But what's something that you look at and you think Bendigo could be doing better? Because it's a loaded question, but I just, you know, I value your judgment on what goes on in Bendigo, and I know you've been vocal about the mosque and other things, but just something that you would bring to the table that you think this is something that we should be looking at in the future.
Well, I mean, I think Bendigo, as you've said, is the most marvellous place, and I can't see why anybody would want to live anywhere else. From my perspective, it's pretty perfect. But from, you know, I'm able to make my own way through things. And so, I mean, in order to find something that would make it more livable, I would have to talk to other people. I mean, even with housing, you know, housing's much more affordable, but then there's more low-cost housing. There's one thing that is absolutely fundamental to me, and that is health. And I wonder whether there's a way that the City of Greater Bendigo could encourage a higher level of health. And I know workplace health is being encouraged throughout Bendigo by various means, but I wonder whether there's a way that some kind of health activities could be focused upon so that our community, as a community, could become, on the whole, much healthier. There are things that could be done that I've seen overseas and in other places, and in Queensland, where there's outdoor exercise equipment. You know, I mean, you see a lot of boot camps happening around where people are becoming more healthy, but not everybody can afford that. I would like to see a really strong focus on the health, physical and mental health of the community. And I think, I mean, that would be a whole big project, but I think that would be really good because we do have great parks, great schools. I don't know about public transport. I don't use public transport. There's lots of things that are absolutely fantastic here, but I just, you know, if you're thinking about an extra thing, you know, the arts is great. I just think health could be a really good focus.
That's something that the council are working on, and from what you're saying, that's something that you're looking at. They are working on it. Trevor Budge is talking about bike paths. The hospital are talking about they want to try and stop people from coming there. You walk into the new hospital, you won't see a lift, you'll see stairs. But we've got to encourage people. We're not promoting this because the council are working hand in hand with the hospital and other operators in Bendigo. But if you're looking at that, that's something that obviously is not getting to the public. We're not talking about it because we are the second most obese regional city in Victoria, and that's something that's a very valid point that you touch on.
We've had a program in our business for 10 or 11 years, a workplace health program that's highly regarded all over Australia. People ask me all the time, you know, what's your return on investment? What's it? I don't know. You know, I just know it's good for people. The level of influence of good health on the folk in our factory and through our stores across Australia is remarkable. But a lot of it has to be provided at no cost, because that's pretty simple. But you've got to do some fundamental things. And, you know, you see a great level of activity around, but I think there needs to be more because many people are sedentary and obese. So I would think that the absolute icing on the cake would be to have a very, very strong focus. And I'm aware of the council's focus in workplace health, but for public health of just everybody who's wandering around Bendigo to have a great focus on their health would be excellent.
Well, Margot, love your passion. I know you love Bendigo, as we both do, but it's really great to have you on the Pointy End. We should have you more
Thanks,
often
Pete.
to come up with what's your next big idea. But yeah, thank you for appearing on the program today.
You're welcome.